My name is David Gabriel, and this is another episode of GSTT Energy Beginnings and Legends, celebrating our geological foundation and future. In order for us to build our future of Trinidad and Tobago, where we want our energy industry to go, where we want our country to go, we have to understand where we came from. We're talking to some of the people who built the foundation on which our local energy industry is built. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, members of the GSTT and the wider public and our audience on YouTube. This is the fifth edition. Yeah, this is the fifth edition of our YouTube documentary series, Energy Beginnings and Legends, Our Foundation and Future. So, as usual, I am your host, David Gabriel, current president of the GSTT. And today we'll be interviewing Mr. Wilson Lalla. I don't have to say much else. Right? So again, for me, it's really an opportunity for us to hear the stories of how our energy industry was built from the people who built it. Right? I think that's important to hear things from their perspective. So this is the fifth giant that we have come to talk to us. So, Mr. Wilson Lalla, you could introduce yourself.
Well, you heard my name, Wilson Lalla. I'm a geologist. I'll be 80 years old this year. I started working in Texaco. I was on a Texaco scholarship to geology. I worked with Texaco until the exit of Texaco and the advent of the National Oil Company. Yeah. I took early retirement at about 55 years. At that time, I was the chief explorationist at the State Oil Company. Wow. And I went into consulting, which I still do now a little bit. But, and basically that's it.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Tight, succinct
summary.
So now we're going to do a little bit of exploration.
Okay.
Right? So one of the most interesting things for me talking to people like yourself who are experienced is could you tell us a bit about, what school you went to and who inspired you to get into geology, like your secondary and your primary school?
Well, I really was born in the little village of Rio Claro. I went to the Presbyterian school there, and I went to Presentation College then. And after leaving Presentation College, I worked for a short while, well, not really a short while, a couple of years, with the Ministry of Energy, where I was introduced to the petroleum industry. I was a research assistant, basically collecting information from the well files and giving it to the petroleum engineers so they can do our work. That introduction to that job gave me an inclination to the oil industry. At that time, the major oil companies, Shell, Texaco, BP, offered scholarships in a variety of fields related to the oil industry. And Texaco put out an advertisement for 12 scholarships, one of which is petroleum engineering. And that's what I really wanted to do. I never really thought of doing geology. Okay. And I went to the interview, and after I finished the interview, they said, Mr. Lalla, would you consider scholarship in geology if it is offered to you? I wasn't prepared for the question, of course. So I said, well, look, can I get some time to think about that? So they said, yes, how much time do you need? I said, well, give me a week. And I went and I spoke to people in the industry. My boss at the time at the ministry was Wayne Bertrand's father, Eugene Bertrand. And I went and I spoke to him and so on. And then he put me on to other people in the industry whom I didn't know. Spoke to them. And they told me, listen, take the scholarship in geology. He said, because if you do geology with basic science, physics, maths, chemistry, you can get into the industry and you can learn on it, you can be trained to become a petroleum engineer. And in fact, there were several very good and senior petroleum engineers in the industry then who went through that route. Okay. But he said, if you do a degree in petroleum engineering, there's no way you can be a geologist. So So that was the answer.
Okay.
So I took it, and I'm very, very happy that I did geology. I'm exceedingly happy I did it. It excites me. I'm still very interested in it. I still keep in touch with it. I still read the APG, things like that, you know.
That's amazing.
So that is the story of how I ended up in geology.
Okay.
Geology, it looks as though geology found me rather than I found.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So one of the things that's interesting that I'd never thought about is, you said give me a week.
Yes.
And you went and looked for people to help you
Yes.
understand what that opportunity was. So that's a good tip for our young guys, our young professionals. Again, Mr. Bertrand's name comes up again,
Yes.
So that was the beginning of your trip. What was it like in those days, leaving Trinidad, leaving your home behind to go to Jamaica?
It was really not a big thing. To leave your country and go and study abroad. It was people were doing it. The first thing is they used to go to England.
Right.
People during the colonial days, people go to England and they would study law or study medicine, things like that. The advent of UWI, of course, widened the spectrum of things. And it wasn't a big thing really to leave the country and go to another country and so on. And I enjoyed my 3 years at the university very, very much. In that there was a special honors degree in those days, and there were 2 people in the class, myself and another Jamaican fella.
Okay.
He was the best man at my wedding, and I was the best man at his wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you went to the full 2 years with 2 people.
And in those days, what you do geology for 3 years. And 2 years, well, Texaco told me, do physics and do maths.
Okay.
Because I figured, and I didn't mind doing it, because that's what I did at the levels. Right. So I did physics and maths and geology 2 years. And so 3 years, 2 years, and then I did geology alone the last year on it.
Okay. How did that suggestion help you when you went to work at Texaco?
What suggestion?
Doing the math and the physics with each other.
Oh, the maths and the physics. When you're trying to understand geophysics, for example, logs, how it is they acquire the data to give you that image on it, you need physics on it, and you need some maths too on it.
Okay.
The physics was important to understand the geophysics, as you know, you did geophysics.
I did geophysics.
So that when you read a Schlumberger manual and telling you they run this log, you can read it, you can understand it. But if you don't do physics, but well, maths, you'll have a lot of difficulty.
Yeah. The gamma rays and the resistivity and that type of thing. So So how involved was Texaco at that time in guiding you while you were at university? Did you come back and do internships?
During the vacation, I came back here, and they put me down in the field to basically to understand what the oil industry is. So to see a rig, spend some time on a rig, see this type of thing, go with the petroleum engineers, see what it is they do, look at a log. When they're talking about a log, go down and be involved, see what it's, basically immersing me into the industry on it. But other than that, there wasn't very much involvement other than that. But that it wasn't because you're in Jamaica.
Yeah. What is your best memory of your time?
Best what?
Your best memory of your time at Mona, at university?
No. There were 2 things. It was wonderful living in Hall. I lived in Hall 3 years, but that's a social aspect.
Right.
I mean, it's wonderful. I was tremendous. And you make friends there for life.
Yeah.
And that life. But our department was a small department.
Right.
And you had very close relationship with the professors. Right. So by the time you reach 3rd year and you're a special honors student, you have interacted so often with them that there's a friendship that developed with you. Yeah. Those are the things that I remember very well.
Yeah, that must have been. I can't imagine that. When I was at university, there were 120 people in the first year.
Yes.
And then at the last year, it was maybe 30 of us.
Yes.
So, I mean, you couldn't hide. With 2 people in a class.
And there was a lot of, and especially the 3rd year, there were a lot of seminars where you had to come and present something. It was like a semi-little thesis, like little papers. And then they will bring other people and they will interrogate it. So they expose you to that type of thing.
Okay, that is. So now you've come back to Trinidad. Was it difficult to leave that environment where you're surrounded by intellectuals and academics and come back to where did you grow up?
No,
You said
Rio Claro.
Rio Claro.
But I stayed in San Fernando when I went to college, presentation college.
Okay.
No, it wasn't difficult, I tell you. When you finished your bachelor's degree, you want to go back home.
Yeah.
You want to come back home, you know?
Yeah.
You want to come back home. Besides, I had to come back after the bachelor's degree because I was on a scholarship with Texaco, and that was one of the conditions.
Yeah.
I had to go back there. I always wanted to do graduate work at that time. And I came back and I worked with Texaco for 2 years. And after 2 years, I went and I did a master's degree in petroleum geology at the University of Tulsa. And Texaco paid my way on that one. Paid my way on that one. And I like school,
You like school?
I like the university environment. I like that. And I wanted to stay on and do the PhD there. And Texaco told me I had to come back, that they didn't think a PhD was necessary for what they wanted me for. So I had to come back then.
What did they want you for? What did you think?
To work as a geologist in their department. And when I was there, basically, there was a whole wing of geologists and geophysicists. And there were just 2 local people when I was there. Myself and Manny Beeman. It was an expat environment.
Okay. How many of them, in total made up a department?
The expats, I would say about 30 professional people on the corridor. The head of the drafting department was an expat. I still did, no thanks. Head of drafting was an expert. So it was a lot of expats from there.
Wow. What was it like sitting in that environment where you had people from all over the world as experts and you as the young grad?
Well, in the beginning, of course, you have to take a little time to get to that. The culture is different, and so on. But they were very helpful. As a young geologist, they were very helpful. Right down the corridor from me was a guy called George Higgins. He wrote the first book on the geology of Trinidad. It was down there. And whenever you want to go on a field on the weekend, he'll come to me. Wilson, you want to come along? Well, glad.
Yeah.
I wasn't married, nothing. So I on a field with George Higgins, showing me what the variety of all the little things. But also, I was apprenticed to a 55-year-old geologist by the name of Ray G. And he was a very, very good person, very nice person. I really learned a lot from him. The first well I proposed to drill, I did draw my structure map, draw my isopac map, do my cross section, right? And I went in and say, Ray, I think I'm ready. He said, okay, come in. And he said, okay, stick it up on the board with pencil. They're going to present it to him. He said, you see, this is good. You see here, your map not fit in your cross section. And he went through the detail. AG spent 2 hours with me that day. And every location I went, he would do that. So it was, the people were different, the culture was different. But very soon you became part of the team on it.
Right.
Very part of the team. It was working with Texaco was a very good, very, very, very good experience. It was an excellent training ground for a young geologist.
What would you recommend as older professionals that we are becoming in building these younger people, talking to them? What are some of the things that you've learned from sitting under these giants like Ray?
Well, if you are working in a company environment where there are more experienced people, I would say try to get as much education as you can from them. Try to, you have a break, talk about something, something that you would really understand. And they have the experience, they will bring it out. If you're doing something, you're doing a project, and you're having a problem with that, or you're having a difficulty, walk over to them and say, I'm having a difficulty with this thing, You have to make yourself learn on it.
Right.
It will not come to you.
Become teachable, reach out. Yeah.
But also keep abreast of what is happening. Join the APG, keep abreast of the journals. Right. Write a thing. You can't read the whole journal every time. But you might see articles there.
I mean, Texaco was here for a long time, and now we get into that transition in 1970s. I mean, to I would say, to summarize, the foreign oil companies had come to a stage where onshore Trinidad became mature. They felt that they had extracted as much as they could, and they were beginning to leave. You know, if you look at the other interviews, you see people talking about that transition. What was that like for you? Because it was 1980, probably around that time. Texaco, I mean, BP and Shell probably had left.
Mhm.
What was it like in that transition?
Yes. Well, when the transition, when the Texaco left, I was the chief LE observationist.
Mm-hmm.
And we first merged with Trintoc, and then we merged with Trintopec, and it became Petrotrin.
Right.
It was a dramatic change.
Okay, yeah.
Because the cultures were so diametrically opposite.
Mm.
Texaco was a totally task-oriented thing. People considerations were not a great part of the culture at all.
Right.
Trintoc had a more people-oriented culture on it.
Okay.
And my style, when I started that job, when we merged, well, that's all I knew. I knew task orientation.
Right.
And that's how I managed.
Okay.
And my boss, Wayne Bertrand was my boss, and he saw the weakness on it. And Bertrand sent me to a variety of schools in the States, and I began to understand the importance of it. And to understand you could manage and you could manage well, but you may be a poor leader on it. And I began to understand what it is to handle people, how you deal with people, what is leadership, and things like that. And with time, I think I learned enough to change my style completely.
Okay.
And by the way, Trintopec was also a very task-oriented culture too.
Right.
So, but it was a Texaco was totally task-oriented and hold you accountable.
So when you say that's a big change,
major,
what do you mean by task-oriented? Could you give an example?
Okay, we have this project to do.
Mm-hmm.
You do it, right? Yes, bring it on time, all the time, up to standard.
Okay.
Do that all the time, right? If you don't do that, you will hear it. Okay. If you cannot meet it, I will find somebody else to do it.
Okay.
That was the culture. Now, I wouldn't say not everything is bad about that culture.
Right.
Not everything is bad about that culture. Right? You learn to do your work well, you learn to do your work on time, and you learn to do it properly all the time. You take it seriously.
Yeah. First time, every time, high quality.
High quality. And Texaco was an excellent training ground. Yeah. I think, of course, the weakness in their culture was you probably get more out of people, depending on your people skills.
So when you say people oriented, what was that like? What was that change like?
Yeah, people oriented. You realize that I went to a school once when Wayne Bertrand sent me, and there was a statement the fellow made that made me change a lot in terms of how I manage. He said, if you care, really genuinely care about the people who work for you, you will get the most out of them.
Wow.
And that thing has stayed with me, not only in my work, but it stayed with me in life.
Yeah.
And those things caused me to change. You care about this fella. So you don't only interact with him for the work.
Right.
You know? But you can't play your care.
Right, because people will find you out.
You feel you're catching the fella.
Yeah, you're playing a game. You're playing a game.
You know your mama guy in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You can't play your care. It has to be genuine. Yeah. And that doesn't come automatic. It comes with if you are genuinely committed to it, you will get there.
So from what you're saying, that came with training. That came as training.
Exposure. Yeah. Exposure. I don't think if I wasn't exposed to that element of people, I do not think I would have been as good as I'm not saying I was very good. People have to judge that. I can't say how good I was.
Yeah.
That's
an honest statement. Yeah.
I can't say that. I may not be very good, but I can say I became better than what I was. Right. That's what I could say. Right. The people orientation was and I think Trintopec culture wasn't greatly people oriented either. So, but I think in the end we had a blend that was working, but that was such a major change culturally. It is three cultures, you know. You're trying to blend there. That you work with it, you learn, you get a little better, you learn again, you get a little better.
Yeah.
See, and then as time goes on, the different people from the different cultures, they get to know each other better, working together. So that helps.
We talk about now in like present company about team builders. That's what we're doing this for. But that's what you get. You meet people as they are, where they are.
Yeah.
You know.
But you have to. A team builder needs somebody to build a team. You need somebody to build a team, and that is where the people skills come in. On it.
You need somebody to build the team.
To build a team, to get the team to work together.
We've zoomed through a long period, so now we're at Petrotrin. So we have this large company, which is a blend of 3 or 4 different cultures. Could you just kind of summarize, what was it like moving from a lot of people, moving from this private sector, money-driven, production-driven environment to a state oil company? What is the difference in your head? How are those two models different? How, in terms of money and people?
Oh, well, there was no comparison to the amount of money that Texaco had.
Yeah.
There's no comparison there to what Trinidad had or Trinidad had. And the availability of funds, the ability of resources outside of Trinidad. They had a research lab, for example. They had people, experts, structural experts, who could come down to Trinidad
from across the globe.
Across the globe.
Yeah.
So major difference from. So they could drill a lot more wells than you can. They can do a lot more exploration drilling than you can, because they're not only drilling in Trinidad, they're drilling all over the world on it. So they will have an exploration well, an exploration budget of $500 million, and Trinidad will be part of that. So they're able to take the risk that, say, a Trinidad could take or a Trinidad could take, not only because of the lack of availability of any significant capital, but you cannot spread your portfolio. You can't do that.
Right. So as part of Texaco, and I guess we spoke about with other interviewees like Alamak, Tesero, and these guys, you had this injection of foreign capital, and so they were able to do more, But then when you move to see Trinidad, and Petrotrin, what were decisions harder? But I mean, because you had to go through more to get that, or in terms of money and making.
First of all, you couldn't do as much as you were accustomed to doing before,
right?
Because the capital available to you was not great,
right?
So you couldn't do any sort of a big exploration program to start with. The funds were not there. If you have limited funds, then there's a limit to the amount of risk you can take on that. And we did some development, a lot of the development drilling, not very much. But recognizing that we built a business model to facilitate exploration drilling.
Okay.
So if we couldn't do it, if we couldn't do the risk, what we decided to do to get into partnerships on it, where you make the acreage that we own available to people who want to partner with us. They would take the risk to run the seismic and do the drilling of the wells.
Right.
If we find oil, we back in for a certain percentage, and we pay our way.
Right.
And we did that on it.
Yeah, that was the beginning of the lease operatorships and the.
No, it's long before lease operation. The first thing we did, the 80s, 1980 to 2000, there's a tremendous amount happened in the oil industry in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, there's the exit of Texaco, the advent of the State Oil Company. Secondly, the Southern Basin Consortium was the first major partnership we had here.
Right.
So what happened, there was a major discovery in Venezuela called the Fluvial discovery. And then all the big boys recognized, well, Trinidad is the same part of the basin, Eastern Venezuelan basin. So Trinidad became of interest. And we owned the acreage, the state owned the acreage, and the government owned the acreage that we didn't. And we decided we're going to we went into a joint venture with Exxon, Chevron, Total, and the State Oil Company for the whole of the Southern Basin onshore, south of the Central Range, everything. But for the Cretaceous.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time in Trinidad, there was a coordinated, state-of-the-art technical attack on the Cretaceous. First time. Really good. We ran a seismic grid throughout the whole Southern Basin.
Mm-hmm.
You know about that, you see.
Yes.
And Exxon was the operator.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there were 6 prospects or 7 prospects or something. Mm-hmm. And 3 were drilled. We didn't find any commercial oil. We found reservoir oil. There was one that produced a little bit of gas, and there are still prospects identified in the Cretaceous there. That is not true.
Still working on them today.
You're working on
Yeah, Rocky Palace, St. Croix.
Yeah,
and there's another one, I think Iguana.
Iguana.
So that program is still the basis on which a lot of work is being done by other companies.
Yes.
Well, I should rephrase. We're not working on it today, but it formed the basis for further work and exploration.
Well, that is so. And if I may branch out from your question, or if you want to give me, I'm not going to answer your question. You just triggered something when you say Cretaceous. That is what I think. There is need for a dramatic change in the business model and the fiscal model which applies to oil in Trinidad. If we don't do that, we'll have the same of what is going on. Oil production peaked in Trinidad in the 1970s at 225,000 barrels a day, approximately. Right? We are producing now, they say 50,000 barrels. But that's 50,000 barrels with condensate. If you take black oil alone, it is 43,000 barrels. If you take the last 3 years of oil production in Trinidad, 2022, 2023, 2024, it was 52,000 barrels a day in 2022. It was 47,000 barrels a day in 2023. It is 43,000 barrels a day. No. If we continue like that, we know what the story is down the road. In no time, we are down to 30,000. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because oil production, we say we are a gas economy, which puts Trinidad, and oil has been treated as of secondary importance. But oil is exceedingly important, not only from the point of view of the revenue of the government. There's a socio-economic element to oil production that gas doesn't have. They employ more people.
Right.
If you take the direct employment of oil and the spin-off industries that come out of it, it's a significant amount of employment on it.
What was your experience of that? What is it? Could you talk about that value chain, that socioeconomic?
Well, the point is, okay, you especially a land operation, you have the service industry, for example, for one, and you have several services.
Right. You have your completions.
Completion, yes. Guys, you have the fellow making the well site for you.
Right.
Right.
Construction.
You have the fellow looking at pollution for you.
Right.
You have the fellow with the road shop in the village. You know, you look at that type of the taxi driver dropping. Right. You don't have that offshore.
It creates chaos and opportunities, right? Yeah.
And it is something of great concern, which I think needs more attention because of what I just told you.
Yeah.
And that is the bad news. The good news is that I am, at the last energy conference, one of the speakers made the comment that the oil-prone acreage of Trinidad is immature. And there's very little, he didn't say it in these words, but that was the message. There is very little we can do about oil acreage. We try to maximize production from the wells we have. And we complement it with low-level intensity development drilling to try, because that acreage basically has just a limit to opportunity. Now, I have a diametrically opposite view to that. Diametrically opposite view to that. There are opportunities. There are several opportunities in Trinidad to increase oil production. First of all, to arrest the decline in the short term and increase it, not short term, we'll probably take the medium term to arrest the decline. Short to medium term, and increase oil production in the medium to long term. I think there are opportunities to it. But we have to change the business model, and we have to change the fiscal model on it.
Where do you think those changes need to come from?
Well,
from the private sector, from the
well,
government?
let me
I'm being controversial here.
No. That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
It was what you're saying. You're saying they have opportunity, but what are you going to do about it? That's what the question is, and that's a very important question.
Mm-hmm.
Let me take it away. If you look at opportunities in Trinidad, there's a section of the opportunities where you have frontier type exploration opportunities, the Cretaceous.
Right.
There is a shale play in Trinidad. It's not shale oil, it is a gas condensate play in Trinidad. We have the acreage on the south coast of Trinidad, which is underexplored and has never had the benefit of state-of-the-art technology.
Right.
Never. Those are three. It's a huge acreage there,
Right.
which is close to the onshore acreage that produced over 1.5 billion barrels of oil.
Right.
What I am saying, this is why I'm talking about the fiscal model now.
Okay.
What I think should be done there is that we can't tweak the fiscal system and cause any significant change. It will never happen. We have to have a dramatic change to cause one of these opportunities to get a well drill on it or get a big seismic survey on it.
Right.
We have to dramatically change that. We couldn't get the deep water off the East Coast without dramatically cutting PPT,
Right.
We had to cut PPT by about 25 or 30% before a company said they want to go out in the deep water.
PPT being, for those who don't know.
Petroleum profit tax.
Okay.
Got that before they go. And we have to do the same thing if we want these frontier opportunities to go. We have to make it attractive. Now, you can't chinks in. You can't chinks with a fiscal policy, right? Because you get chinks in what happened too.
Yeah.
Right? You can't chinks, right?
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to, and we have to do that, and we have to do it now. And you know why we have to do it quick? Because if you look, there's a scenario which can play out down the road where renewable energy will destroy the demand for crude oil.
Yes.
We philosophically, now, there's a lot we don't know about. When will oil peak and when will that destruction in demand start? Yes, BP in their 2024 report said oil will peak in 2030. Chevron, I read something recently, say their oil will peak in 2029 or something like that, right? BP may change their philosophy a little bit because they change their strategy.
Right.
But you read people who write about these things, the Oxford Institute of Energy or what they call it, talking about 2035 or something like that. We don't know. But philosophically, a scenario can play out where renewable energy can continuously destroy your demand for crude oil. We don't know what that now. We don't know when that will happen, and so on. On the other hand, Exxon said oil will be a major part of the energy mix by 2050.
Yes.
So you see what's happening. But we have to bear that scenario in mind, and it's in the interest of Trinidad that any oil we have, they produce it out quick.
Right.
Produce it out quick.
Drill, baby, drill.
Drill it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
In going through all of these interviews, I've had a number of people state exactly what you're saying there, but with different tactics, right? So some people have said, okay, open up the data, give the data, or in some form, make it available more readily.
To me, that is a given.
Yeah. Krishna Prasad said, which was very interesting. He said, the data is great, but the interpretation is more important. Because I can give you all the data, but I can give all of us here data in the room and we'll come up with different prospects. So it's about, which I think is a good thing, let's start selling prospects instead of data. The third thing is what you're saying. Change the fiscal structure, change the investment you need to put in to get something out.
Well, the thing about the data, I think we have to go further than that. Well, this is what I think should happen. All the data in Trinidad related to oil, let it be accessible to anybody, anywhere in the world. Trinidad, North America, accessible to them. And what has to go in parallel with that one? Because the reason for doing that, you want to generate drilling activity. Right? Drilling activity. In parallel with that, you have to break up your acreage into blocks, right? And into blocks, and make certain blocks of acreage available to people, and say, make a proposal. Anybody can make a proposal.
Right.
You make a proposal, right? And then you set up systems. I'm talking about the idea now. You will have to handle details, of course. You set up systems to evaluate those proposals and so on. Let me see if, or you could stop me for talking too much.
No. Yeah.
Time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is good. This is excellent.
No, I feel very passionate about this thing of oil production.
I can tell.
Let's take the oil acreage. Oil-prone acreage in Trinidad is the Gulf of Paria, onshore, and shallow water off the East Coast. That's it. The whole Gulf of Paria and all the producing fields onshore and some acreage around it is licensed to the state oil company.
Yes, generally.
The state oil company has very good people. I mean, very experienced people, professional people. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
However, if you look at the amount of drilling the state oil company is doing, 6 shallow wells a year, 8 shallow wells a year, 10 shallow wells a year, that will never have any significant impact on oil production.
Right.
And the acreage which they have can support a much greater level of activity than that. It is not the professional's fault. You only have so much money, right? You only have so much money. So what I'm saying is, the state oil company may excise a certain piece of the acreage they have, which is what they want to see they're drilling on, and the rest of it, open it up in blocks. Producing, non-producing, open it in blocks. Make data everybody. Make a proposal. Work out the details. Of course, there are details. What I'm saying, there are details you'll have to work out.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you have lease represent farm outs. But most of those lease they do drill wells.
Right.
They don't drill wells. You have 15 of them, maybe 2 or 3 drill wells. You want to drilling wells, leave them alone.
Right.
You work out the details of making that data, mark that thing available to people who want to drill wells. That's the details you have to sort out.
Yeah.
And those people, they are very good at keeping those old wells on production, and let them do that.
Yeah.
But don't tie up the acreage and don't drill.
Yeah, I understand. So you have like a 2-tier system.
Yeah,
you have a system, you're maintaining my base, and we're going to give you acreage, and your main goal is to bring new things, bring new ideas, bring new capital.
Drilling is what creates the greatest impact on oil production. Drilling.
Yeah.
We will never increase oil production in Trinidad if we maintain the same level of drilling that has been there for the past many years. Never.
Yeah.
The opportunities in Trinidad can support 5 rigs working in parallel for several years.
Yeah, because that's what Texaco, Tesoro, these guys would do.
They should do more. They should do more.
Yeah.
But one of the fundamental things also, nobody does exploration drilling. Oil production in Trinidad will not increase if we don't do exploration drilling. Will not increase.
So I will challenge you here.
Okay.
Okay. So we're talking about money, talking about fiscal, right? So when in the 2020s, the Paris Agreement was signed, and a lot of money, stock market money, shifted away from oil towards other things, minerals, renewables, stuff like that. So where are you going to get that money? Where are you going to get that money to drill?
To come in?
Yeah, to come in.
Okay. I am talking of the drilling, the increased drilling is not coming down by the state oil company.
Understood.
It's going to be by company. But there are people call me all the time, tell me, so what's happening in Trinidad? There are people, what happens is this.
Yeah.
What happens is this. A small company. There are institutions there that lend money. They borrow money from certain institutions. They borrow money and they come and they spend it. What they do, they get a certain amount of money borrowed. They go to them and they show them this opportunity they have in Trinidad. That bank has people who will evaluate these opportunities. Right? They borrow. These fellows who come and drill where it's not their money, it's people money. And they come. And there are people there who will do it, small companies. This is a small company operation I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They will do it. They will do it.
Yeah. So I think what you're saying is, I like what you're saying, drop the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
Fiscally and otherwise.
Yeah, definitely.
So you get more people coming to the
open
gate.
Open it up.
We've kind of quickly jumped forward and we're into
Okay.
what where are we now, and where do you see the industry going?
Well,
because you're saying that people are still interested. And the one thing I didn't know that you said was really interesting was that it was a discovery in Venezuela which activated that whole Southern Basin play.
That is correct.
Do you think that another wave like that is coming, or?
Well, if something happens that triggers an interest in Trinidad, of course it will happen. It is something happened in Venezuela that triggered it. It is something that happened, it would. But I don't see, unless something like that happens, I don't see any reason for any great interest, any out of the ordinary interest in oil. In gas, yes, because the deep water is open. Right. As far as oil is concerned, we have to do things to trigger interest outside of Trinidad. We have to do things.
Yeah.
We have to do things.
We have to start.
Yeah.
We have to start shopping ourselves.
Yeah.
And I've heard a number of people say that the entry bar to getting is a little high. You have all the private sector money coming into the oil and gas industry. How is that different from when you left in your 55?
Well, when I left, there was there's private sector locally and there's private sector foreign, right?
Okay.
Yeah, right.
What's the difference between two?
No. What one? There's a significant amount of private sector money because the lease operators and the farmers, a lot of local people there. Right. We have some. There were some foreign companies that came in the early days, and now they're gone. Mm-hmm. Right now, I think there's a Canadian company here operating on it. Mm-hmm. I am not sure if there are any other foreign companies operating in Trinidad in the oil industry in a significant way. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I think that if we open up acreage there, right, and we make the data available, and you do something with the fiscal terms, it will trigger interest.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
The fact is, David, we know what we're doing now, air working. Right? What we're doing on air working.
Yeah.
So we have to do something different.
Yeah, we have to take all data
and we have to look for ideas. So this is an idea. Why not take the idea down the road as far as you can and say, to what extent can I implement it?
Right. Have a kind of Shark Tank type environment.
The alternatives do the same thing you're doing all the time, and you know what Einstein said about that?
Yeah, that leads to madness, right? So I never thought about that before. That drilling for oil creates a lot more opportunities for everyone within the society.
It is, and we're a small society.
Yeah, and offshore as opposed to onshore.
We're a small society. What it does to you create companies when you do that.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
There'll be, because it's a small thing. They have retired people, engineers, geologists, they could get together, right? And they could take a block.
Yeah.
They hire some people. Yeah. They produce 150 barrels a day, produce 200 barrels a day.
Yeah.
You create entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So this is it's a challenge to the Ministry of Energy, right?
No, it's a challenge to the state oil company.
To the state oil company.
Yes.
Okay.
Is a challenge to the state oil company because they do not have. It appears to me, I can judge from the level of activity and the quality of the people, the good quality of the people there. I'm sure they could do more if they had more money.
Yeah. I don't want to betray my bias, but I can see that for me, we have excellent people. I work there, to betray my bias. I work there. We have excellent people, but it is just the numbers alone are daunting sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, that you're sitting in a basin with the most wells. Like we had a consultant coming from outside and he was looking at our data. And this is for me where the opportunity is, right? As you said, the opportunity is within the data. Can we archive, organize, pull out all of that data and present it in a way that is that you turn data into information and information into an opportunity, right? So as an example, you may want to take a field and this is an idea that Krishna Prasad, what do they call it? gave to us. He said, take an opportunity, take a field, and wake it up. Get all of the data, and wake it up. In terms, extract the information from the well files, like where you started. I've looked at well files, and well files tell incredible stories. Put that into some kind of database. Do up your maps, all the rest. And for me, a lot of other countries do that. Present it as an opportunity for people to invest. Present your interpretation, our interpretation as an opportunity to invest. So now we go into the last part of our interview, which is, kind of, we ask everyone, where are the opportunities that you see in Trinidad and without Trinidad for a geoscientist, for an engineer?
Graduating in geoscience, no, it does present certain issues for a young person. The thing that makes it very difficult is we are in an early stage of a transition.
Mm-hmm.
A transition which could lead to decreasing the importance of oil and gas in the energy mix, and therefore decreasing the opportunities in what has traditionally been the people who employ you on it.
Right.
And that is what you have. You see. Now, things are opening up in the application of geology to other areas, like geothermal energy.
Right.
You have to use that. Now, it will not give you the employment level that oil and gas will do, but is branching off there.
Right.
One of the things is water, hydrogeology.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is unfortunately underapplied in Trinidad. With our water problems on it.
Yeah.
A geologist from Trinidad getting geology, you can't expect to get a walk in Wassa to look for water because the opportunity is not there, of course. But I mean, I could see now. However, in Jamaica is a different thing.
Why? They have more activity, or they drill for more water?
They drill wells, and in the drill wells there's a they apply hydrogeology on a much wider scale than here on it.
Right.
And it is a tough one, and to be honest with you, I don't know how to answer that. It is a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that. I can give little tidbits here, a little tidbit there.
Yeah.
But to say give somebody a solid piece of advice, it is too early in the transition for somebody to give advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I think when I would have started in industry, I mean, I'll give you some advice my dad gave me. He was like, don't do it. Simply, he was like, I had my career. It was tumultuous if you think about it.
Yeah.
You're going from the 70s where you thought you had a job for life. Then, those companies leave, the state oil company takes over. I mean, then we didn't know whether it was going to last. Remember his career, and then finally I feel like when the more we talk to people as if they escaped in time, I was 55. It's about.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But one thing I do see is that, and I see that you can take new technologies and apply it, and you can see things you didn't see before. And one of the things I encourage young graduates is that Trinidad is not the only place on the planet.
That's right.
And when you look at what's going on internationally, I congratulate Trinidad and Africa in being okay, fighting for simply saying you built your country on the back of cheap fossil fuels. You cannot deny us the opportunity to do the same, because a lot of companies are pulling out of Africa and these other countries, and they are leaving just as they left us to develop our own resources, oil, gas. You see it in Mozambique, Nigeria, Angola, and we have to tell our young grads, go to Saudi Arabia. Somebody offers you a job in Nigeria, go. I I worked with people in a lot of those places as support, and it's a tremendous opportunity, and I think we have to say to them, UE it doesn't stop here. Don't think about BPTT. Think about,
some other places.
yeah, think about go to the UK, go to the US, look at opportunities across Africa and Asia. But at the same time, you have to, which is what we know, people that who've been in the industry for the last 20 years, is that every 5 years you will get a drop, you will get a blip. You have to save, you have to know that this thing is you're kind of on a train that is slowing down, but I would tell something that, but what would you think about this advice I got from somebody? They said, the oil industry in Trinidad is slowing down. So look at other things, the other things you mentioned.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think, I think anybody young person going in that, they shouldn't pigeonhole themselves into one particular area of geology. I mean, that's not going to be good for them.
Right.
And they must be aware that if it's the oil industry in Trinidad is winding down, I don't think it has to wind down as fast as it is winding down now. I think there's a long time. We can extend the life of the oil a very long time. I can't say that we could build back production to 200,000 barrels a day like what we had. I don't think we can, but I think we can build it up to in the region of 80 to 90,000 barrels a day. I think we can.
So one very current topic then. What do you think about the cross-border deals for gas?
Gas. Well, I don't know about the details of the deal in terms of what effectively comes to the government, what effectively goes to Shell or BP. I don't know the details of that. Neither do I know the details of, with respect to Dragon, what it is that the government get or what it is that the Venezuelan government get. But what I would say is that it is a commendable initiative to have taken. We look at, if you take what's you just mentioned the Manatee.
Yep.
Manatee, Loran Manatee. 10 trillion cubic of gas. We have 3 TCF, Venezuela has 7.
Right.
If we went about that operating the normal way, both of the countries have to come to some agreement before anybody operates. Trinidad took the initiative to meet with Venezuela to work out something. And they work out something with Venezuela. Okay, you do what you want with yours, I go do what I want with mine. That was a major change.
Right.
We couldn't have done it otherwise. Right?
And the way business was done.
The way business was done. The initiative taken for Dragon, that is commendable. Because Venezuela didn't come to us for anything. It was stayed there. Neither Venezuela or Trinidad would have benefited from it. It is just across the border from us. We could take the gas and bring it to the infrastructure and gas we have in the North Coast. And be able to work out conditions. So it is commendable. That's the initiative. Now, for the sake of Trinidad and Tobago, I hope it comes through, because there are some roadblocks with respect to the US government and so on.
Yeah.
There's also the Manatee Coquina, which is, I think, BP and so on, which is not as big as Manatee Loran, but it's there.
Yeah.
But I think they're commendable.
So you think they're good initiatives?
Oh yes, I think it's good. Okay, if we did not, the alternative is to do nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The alternative do nothing. So you're saying by not taking that initiative, it's going to be better to do nothing.
Yeah.
If you take an initiative and even if it fails,
right?
Put
your hat in the ring. Yeah.
You throw your hat in the ring and you do what you can on it.
Yeah. I think what is interesting to me is that oil and gas does not respect borders.
Of course,
it exists where it exists.
Yeah.
I admire that we have maintained good relationships with, for want of a better word, two enemies, right? And on different political stands. We're kind of Switzerland, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
In terms of we can talk to both parties.
Yes, yes.
And I think if I could say this, I think it's important that Trinidad maintains that.
Mhm.
We maintain that we are a safe space for both parties.
Mhm.
And I think it's important given how our infrastructure is, and we have the LNG plants, and we have the downstream that we have a way that we are allowed to continue that. But that's not for us to say.
Right.
That's for
Fair
the
enough.
powers that
Fair
be
enough.
to talk about. So, what has been your relationship with engineers? What do you think petroleum engineers and geologists?
Listen,
Yeah,
the
you've had a
nature,
long time, a long
yes,
experience
the
working with
nature
them.
of the geological, of the work that geologists do,
Mm-hmm.
and the nature of the work that engineers do would lead to some conflict sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And that will happen. If you work up a development drilling project, and the system that we had in Texaco,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you work it up, it goes to the reservoir engineer, he does the reserves for you, and he does the economics for you, right? Now, and he say, well, by the economics here, now we can't drill this well,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. And you say, why can't drill? Why? So why use that porosity? So because you're fighting for your well.
Right.
So there is that, but that's a professional interaction.
Okay.
There is no personal animosity to it.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you're going to club and you have a beer.
Right.
Yeah. That's how we worked.
That's the people part of
It's
it.
the people part of it, yes.
Right.
The people part of it. What were you talking about?
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was talking about. That was exactly what I was
I
talking
think we had good relationship with the engineers.
So what I was getting at was that we're now into an engineering problem. We're now into how do we get the most out of the resources that we have. Okay, put it this way: you have production, right? Let's say 30,000 barrels of production.
Mhm.
For me, as a scientist and a mathematician, the solution would be if I'm producing 30,000 barrels a day, but I'm losing 4,000 of it in leaks, right? It's not getting to the tank farm.
Mhm.
Where would you invest your money? Would you invest your money in giving the geologists money to drill more wells? Or would you invest your money in giving the engineers and the technicians time and money to fix your pipelines and your tank farms? To bring the 30,000 that you have to market.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
and of course there's the third angle of it. Your engineers, give your engineers the time and the space and the money to develop novel solutions. EOR, CCUS, that type of thing. You have three options. Where would you put your money?
Where you put your money depends on how much money you have. Right? How much money you have. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So if
you have Texaco money, where do you put your money?
Oh no. If a company like Texaco will spread it among the oil finding, the oil producing, the maintenance of the integrity of your infrastructure, they will have a budget for each of that.
Right.
Oil production is not a one-man thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's a huge.
Everybody, the engineer had to come together, the geologist had to come together, the production engineer had to come together, right? The fellow fixing the road, right? They fix together. It is teamwork of several disciplines coming together.
Yeah. It's a huge organism that touches every part.
Yeah. So if we take in our Trinidad,
so now you have Petrochin money.
Texaco is an irrelevant analog.
Right. So if you have Petrochin money,
what
do you do?
Well,
sorry. I get scolded for this. You have heritage money. What do you do?
Okay, heritage. If you get heritage money, well, boy,
you have state oil company money.
State oil company. You don't have the money to do even the things that you should do, right? Because obviously, I'm sure the geologists and they want to drill more wells. I'm pretty sure of that, right?
Yes.
But what they could drill still shallow wells in a year. So because you need to fix a pipeline that's leaking, you need to fix a bridge. The bridge fall long and you have to move there to. So you see, it is a question of a company like the state oil company. They don't have the funds to do very much. You have funds to maintain your infrastructure. You have to maintain a certain integrity infrastructure to produce your oil.
Right.
And that will come as priority one.
Okay.
When you go beyond that, then you could say, well, boy, because drilling wells is taking risk.
Right.
Drilling wells is taking risk.
Yeah. So you would say solidify what you have and then.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't drill a well if you drill that well, that pipe that break in the pipeline will continue to throw oil out.
Right.
Right? You go and fix the pipeline.
Yeah.
See, and you have to. This is why I say you have to bring in partnership in the oil industry. Otherwise, we will keep on going down the road.
Understood.
That's my message. If you want my message.
Yes. I think that's a great soundbite. That we need help across the entire workflow, the entire ecosystem. You know, you need investors in the beginning when you're building your prospects. You know, and then you need companies to invest money in other parts, maintenance and building out of your downstream. So yeah. What was your life like within GSTT? Were you in?
I was on the first executive. It was very exciting to tell you that. We were one of the early geologists who came back in the industry.
Local
right. Krishna had come back a few years before. I had just come back with Texaco and so on. Ken Birchwood, myself, Barry Carr-Brown, Krishna Prasad. I think we were the core who really got together and sort of started the Geological Society on it. It was and we did field trips, and people were very excited. You know, we did field trips very regularly and so on. We had an annual dinner and so on. You know, and it was very, 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 very active.
Yeah.
And then you had BP, Shell, Texaco. No, BP had gone. BP had gone by then. But I think Shell was still there, and Texaco. At least Texaco was there. So you still had a lot of expatriate element, and Amoco was there.
Okay. Yeah.
Amoco had come in.
Right,
then,
on the East Coast.
On the East Coast there. So there was an expatriate element too that supported the GSTT.
Yeah.
It was very, very active and so on.
Sounds like these field trips were exciting.
Loved Peter. We have annual, and it was lovely. It was a big social element to food and everything.
Okay.
And the companies will provide all the things and so on. They
will provide the food.
If you go down and you're looking at Mount Volcanoes, Palseco, the oil company down there will, at the club down there, they go to the club and they will a nice little spread and so on.
Okay.
I don't think do it now.
No, man, we always pushing. We always pushing for more. We always pushing for more, and I think that's one of the things that I want to encourage. The oil companies out there, to partner with us. And they are doing that.
I think they will. I know BP. They're probably still doing it. I know BP gave the GSTT a lot of support a few years ago. A lot of support on it.
Yeah, we want to encourage. We want to encourage companies to continue to support and continue. I mean, one of the things that we've done is to talk about some of the things that we've been doing over the last 3 years. Is we trying to bridge that gap from young graduates who are coming out of school who are, for want of a better word, underemployed, and they're passionate about getting into geoscience. So we try and encourage companies to sponsor the membership of their geologists, and then we're encouraging the geologists who are sponsored then to sponsor the membership of students. And then we want to expand that so like, let's say you've sponsored a particular student, my challenge to that person would be, hey, get involved, contact them, spend time with them, take them out if they have questions, And the last 3 presidents, we've done that. You take an interest in a particular young person and you tell them, hey, you have any problems, anything, come talk to me, you're looking for a job, and then we have career workshops as well. So for me, that's something I learned from when I went to university. I went to University of London, University College, and they would invite students to come back and talk about their experiences, talk to the young graduates, to encourage them, and I think this is the other thing that we've done. We have a career workshop. So that's one of the things you want to do, that a lot of the geoscientists now are quite young, a lot of us that are active are under 40. Right. So we want to encourage them to give back, and then we want to encourage the companies to get more involved with us and then talk to us about the things that you want. What do you want your geoscientists to know? What do you want them trained in? You know, we want to develop relationships with geoscience managers and subsurface managers, something that was normal during your time. That is kind of waiting away now.
Okay.
So that's what we want to. So all of this is part of that. You know,
Mhm.
getting more engagement in different ways. So, Mr. Lalla, it has been amazing.
This has been.
It has been amazing.
Thank you for coming, man. I'm glad. Well, I met you. Well, I know David. I met you, and my former student Terry is one of the brightest students in the class. First class in petroleum geoscience in the university.
Therese is waving off camera. No, please. Get out of it. But yeah, no, I think it's and I think that is, you know, for me, I think we're at that next stage where we have a lot of graduates, and now we need to connect them out into the world, you know. And I think this is where people like yourselves, people like Therese and I can help them, to mentor them, to get them into positions, you know, and that type of thing. And even, as you said, big point, look outside, look in hydrology, look at geotechnical, you know. And I had a friend who was
and like you said, Trinidad is not the world.
No, it's not. It's a small piece. It's a small rock in the middle of the Atlantic. You know, you have a whole world out there, you know. And to end on this, you know, I used to listen to this thing every day, and it's an inspirational speaker, and he would say, you know, the world needs you. You know, it needs you to go out there and make a difference in people's lives. And you've done it. Other people have done it, gone outside Trinidad. You know, we try and encourage the young people, you know, you got good education here, take it and go. You know, if that's what you want to do. Yeah, and we'll support you in that. So, thank you very much, Mr. Lalla.
It's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. It's good to see you.
This has been this has been a really, really interesting.
Is it?
Really,
well, thanks for that. Yeah.
Thanks for watching GSTT Energy Beginnings and Legends. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And keep in touch at the GSTT on Instagram and the Geological Society of Trinidad and Tobago on Facebook. Catch issues of the Hammer newsletter on our website at thegSTT.org, and look out for more episodes of GSTT Energy Beginnings and Legends, celebrating our geological foundation and future, coming soon.